God will make a way where there seems to be no way. He works in ways we cannot see.
The Bible is filled with, accounts of many godly men and women who are worthy of our emulation. And one such person is Daniel. I'd like to look at Daniel and see what we can learn from his life. First, I would like to mention that Daniel was a man of purpose. As we focus on the man Daniel, who he was, his character, I want us to realize that Daniel was a man of purpose. He was a man of purpose. He knew what he wanted, and he settled for nothing less. His goal in life was to honor and glorify God. That was his sole goal. He is in captivity, and he's trying, to be the best he can be out there. But then there are some rules out there about the education system, about, even the change of their names, so that their names do not reflect their God, but the gods of the Babylonians and stuff like that. And he doesn't seem to protest. But then, new food is being introduced to Daniel and his friends. It gets to a point where Dan and his friends feel, we cannot take it anymore. We have to draw a line, so to speak, in the sand. We will accept the education system. We will accept they're trying to change our names. That's okay. We are not protesting so far. But on this particular thing about food, no. We are not taking food that is, offered to idols. Actually, the meat, had been offered to the gods of the Babylonians. And, it would defile them. And so they get to a point where they feel, no, we are not going to do this. We are drawing the line. We have a purpose, a higher purpose. Our purpose is to honor and glorify God, even in captivity, and we are not going to compromise. Look at what verse 8 says of chapter 1. The King James Version says, "But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself." Daniel purposed in his heart he would not defile himself. He was a man of purpose. As a teenager in a strange land, he could so easily have succumbed to the pressure. He could so easily, have said, well, there's nobody here to observe whether I'm eating or not. There are no many Jews here. After all, I'm at the palace and, I'll just compromise. But despite the fact that he was a young man and there was so much pressure on him, he purposed in his heart to uphold the law of the Lord regardless of the cost. Friends, we need to be a people of purpose. We need to be a people of strong resolve. We need to be a people who decide and stick with our decisions. That is called purposing. Living for a purpose. And you know what? No one wants a wishy-washy person who has no direction or stand in life. People like people who are, strong in resolve. People who purpose. People who stand for something. And by the way, if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. These guys purpose to stand for God, to honor God, to glorify God. They resolved strongly to honor God, regardless of the fact that they were in a strange land. Secondly, Daniel was a man of principle. He couldn't just fall for anything. He knew what he wanted. He stood for it. Being principled has the aspect of not just having a stand, but having the courage to follow through that stand and living it out. This man was not only a man of purpose, but also a man of principle. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portions of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. This is my stand. I am willing to go this far and not that far. A man of principle. He refuses to compromise also his principles when he is before the king. This is a king who comes and says, hey, I have heard about you. You interpreted some dreams for my dad, when my dad was a king. And you know what? I've had this dream, and if you can interpret it, I will give you this and that. I will reward you in this particular way. This is in chapter 5. And basically, Daniel says, you can keep that to yourself. I'm not interested in what you are to offer, but I'll go ahead and give you the interpretation of the dream anyway. This is a principled person, I will not take. This seems to be something good that I can receive from the king, but hey, my principles do not allow. In chapter 6, later when he's being told, hey, you know what? Unless you bow down to this God that is no real God, you will be thrown into the lion's den. He does not, give in still. Even when there are threats of being thrown into the den of lions. He was a man of principle. And the world is looking for people who are principled, friends. Outwardly, they may ridicule you for being principled, but inwardly, they are admiring you for your character. And the world needs people that can be trusted. And only principled people can be trusted, really. And I want to challenge us to be a people who are principled. Daniel was not only a man of purpose and principle, but also a man of purity. He was a man of integrity, character, basically. He was a man of purity. Chapter 6 and verse 4. This is what the Bible says. At this, the administrators and the satraps tried to find ground for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs, but they were unable to do so. They could find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. Wow. They are looking, for an opportunity to put Daniel into trouble, and they cannot find an opportunity. That they later actually say, the best way to go in getting this guy who is purposed and who is principled, the only way of getting him into trouble is to use his religion, his God, his worship. But generally, they could not find any fault in him when it came to management of business affairs. He is in a position of leadership, and he's doing it with purity. And as believers, I believe we need to be people of character, integrity, people of purity, people who are blameless and faultless, so to speak. And people cannot easily say, hey, this one is corrupt. The last quality I'd like us to look at is the fact that Daniel was a man of prayer. He was a man of prayer. Chapter 6 and verse 10 of Daniel says, "Now when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room where the windows opened toward Jerusalem. 3 times a day, he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had done before." He prayed 3 times a day. This demonstrated the fact that he depended on God. You know, he kneels down in prayer. This demonstrates the fact that he was humble. It demonstrates his humility. He gives thanks. In the midst of persecution, you know, he's giving thanks. This shows his heart of gratitude. It was his custom to pray diligently. I believe the fact that he prayed regularly may have helped him to remain a man of purpose, principle, and purity. And for us today, friends, prayer should not be the last resort. It should be the first thing we do. It should not be when you have tried everything and failed, that's when you rush to prayer. No, it should be a lifestyle. It should be a custom. It should be the first point. When there's something, the first point is prayer. Lord, what would you have me do? Lord, you know, it should not be the last resort. Some people use prayer as the last resort when they have tried everything else and failed. Let us develop a habit of praying often. Let us be a people of purpose. Let us be a people who are principled. Let us be a people of purity. And let us be a people of prayer.